And welcome everyone to Rock M Radio. This is the beginning of a brand new episode of Dive Cuts, and we are live on YouTube for our Rock M Plus subscribers. Season 8 already, and we're here to talk about your Missouri basketball Tigers as the only podcast strictly talking about Mizzou basketball. I am your host, Sam Snelling. If you're watching us on YouTube, you will see me on your left. Please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe if you aren't already. And you can help this channel grow a little bit. With me, on the right side of the screen, Mr. Matthew J. Harris. Matt, how are you?
Uh, okay. I guess given what happened last week, felt good until Saturday, and then saw the results of Saturday, and then saw the fallout, and it's like, eh. So I don't know where I'm at really. It was a good week, then it was a bad week, and now it's just sort of a meh week. But
You're wearing a sweatshirt that says "Sad Dads." So is that apropos?
That's what the National are called. Bunch of sad dads. One of the best gifts my wife has ever given me is this hoodie. It's one of my favorite gifts.
Well, let's talk about the week that was. I tried to sort of encapsulate like what it was in the pour over, because like I don't know that I've ever seen the fan base as happy, even like this season, like even beating Florida at Florida. There was something else about the Alabama win that put everybody on the high. And then you turn around, quick turnaround. Apparently, they also had to bus it to Fayetteville instead of fly.
No PJ? No PJ? Oh
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, you didn't hear that part. Yeah, so quick turnaround, had to bus, get off the bus, play poorly, and like look, like it's not like they lost to the South Carolina team from like 2 years ago. You know, like that was 220 something in KenPom, and like Arkansas is a good team. They're on the bubble. They're top 40 in KenPom. Like this is a game where Missouri was like they were projected to win, but by a point and a half. Depending on the metrics that you're using, but the betting markets had them as a point and a half favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And they lost. So they lost a toss up game.
Yeah,
I know. Like we're gonna talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, of the whole week. But I really like. I'm a little surprised that the response to the loss at Arkansas has been as negative as it has been. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, this fan base tends to think that Mizzou athletics is like the Sideshow Bob meme where they just step on rakes all the time. Like that's for the kids. Go look that one up. That's even dating me a little bit, but no, I think I was thinking about it. Trying to gather some thoughts before we came on, just because I think you can't really. Normally, we talk about games as separate entities, and I think you can't really separate these two. They sort of have to be probably viewed as compared and contrast. And I think there was something so great about not just that the fact they beat Alabama early in the week, but they came out and they stomped on them and got a 12-0 run. Alabama came back, and then Missouri hit them with a 9-0 run late. And there was just something like, okay, yeah, we thought this team was good. We think this team hasn't been getting its due credit, its due respect nationally. Well, take a look at this. We hung 110 on Bama. We took a shot from them in the second half, and we answered it. And this is a top 10 team. We're going to affirm that when we go on the road to Fayetteville. And, had they done what they needed to do in Fayetteville, they probably would have moved into the top, probably pushed the top 10 in KenPom, probably would have been ranked in the top 10 this week. Which I would say they still went up a spot in the polls despite losing to Arkansas. They gained a spot in the polls.
Which, like, yeah, and I will like adding to that a little bit. I think there's beating Alabama is going to carry more weight than taking a loss on the road in the SEC.
Correct. But you look at that, and there was something so affirming, I think, to perception that this team was not getting its fair share of credit. Well, here's this thing. We beat Alabama, a preseason national title contender, and did it relatively convincingly. Please give us our flowers now. And I think if you're a Missouri fan and you've been waiting for national relevance and you can kind of start to make the comparisons to the 08-09 team, the 11-12 team, there was a lot of that starting to happen where group kind of underrated, but they showed their value over time. And then you go out 3 days later and play objectively a terrible basketball game, like not a good basketball game. And you do it to a team that is, I guess, a nominal rival. I still don't really think of Arkansas as a rival. That's not me even trying to do a meta thing where I try and go to Arkansas. I really am ambivalent about Arkansas as a basketball entity. It's a good program historically. I have no real animus to them. I probably feel worse about Oklahoma than I do about Arkansas. But that was a game where I think people probably remember Mizzou beat them by 18. They look at the standings and go, "Oh, Arkansas's 4-9 or whatever," and you think, "Oh, we're a top 10 team. Top 10 teams go on the road and they beat these kinds of squads." And you forget that this is probably the best power conference of the last 25 years, and teams in 11th or 12th are on the bubble. So you're not going to go play some team that's packed it in. Arkansas has been fighting their ass off for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. If you've been tuning in to watch them, they're not the same group that came into Mizzou Arena in mid-January. And so I think you just had this real jarring shift of we've affirmed ourselves as better than people thought we were. People are going to finally give us our due credit. And then you go play a game that you think should be one that a top 10 team wins pretty easily. And you lay an egg. And it just feels like all the air gets let out. And so I get it. I mean, but I think, we tried to hit on it practically after games. You hit on it in the pour over piece. The practical impact here is very, 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 very minimal. In terms of perception, yeah, I get it. It stinks. But if you look at in the SEC standings, if you believe that you really want to double bye, it hurts. But they were on the cut line. They're on the borderline of a 4-5 seed anyway. They stayed on the 5 line. They only moved down a couple spots in predictive metrics. They're still forecasted to win 13 games, 12 or 13 games. The optics suck, but the practical impact of it is very minimal. Now, we'll talk about why we were annoyed watching the Arkansas game, but I think you have to sort of – so there's 3 very lines. There's the pragmatists in us who are who are being sensible, saying, well, they didn't really move in seed lines. The predictive metrics are fine. There's – the optics of us who were
that's the analysis, right? So that's the analysis. But we are fans and analysts here, so there's 2 sides of it.
And I can completely acknowledge the other side.
It
sucks.
Yeah, it pissed you off. It should. The effort defensively. Let's just get into it.
There was
effort. Otherwise, it's like picking at a scab. The effort defensively was poor. The defensive transition was abysmal, non-existent. Some of the and for subscribers, you could go watch if you want to see how riled up Matt Watkins gets. That's at 100 for him. So I haven't watched the full thing yet. I watched the first half. But Watkins is riled up and ready to go. And the verdict.
A lack of defensive effort is probably one of the things that really gets him. If you don't try defensively, is probably one of his bigger bugaboos.
Well, right, because one of the things, and we've harped on this, as far as at some point, Coach Gates, you have to care about defensive rebounding, defense and rebounding, not defensive rebounding. You have to care about these things because. Those things, it matters. It travels. You can do those things well, and the irony of it is they rebounded great.
They did a great job on the glass. They were optimal on the glass. I can't complain. They did a great job in that phase.
It was stopping the transition for Arkansas. It was point of attack. And it was coughing the ball up, and and we've talked about in the past earlier this year, as a matter of fact. Like some of the games where they were a little loose with the ball, it just seemed like there was a lack of focus, and that is something that arises or has arisen with this team in the past. Is like when they don't quite have their focus, they get sloppy with the ball. Against Tennessee, they were phenomenal taking care of the ball. They were locked in, and if Tennessee doesn't shoot an astronomically high percentage of 3-pointers, Missouri beats them on the road there. So like the swing of that to go from that all the way to this, where the ball handling was poor, the transition defense was poor. You give up 92 points to a pretty mediocre offensive team. Like Arkansas, if you can slow them down, you can keep them in the half court, you're going to get them taking a lot of mid-range shots that are not very high percentage even for them. And some nights maybe they make them, but most nights they don't. And instead, I mean, they had like 30 points on dunks. So that's not how you win. And not how you beat what amounts to like a quality team. Like Arkansas isn't a great team, but they're a quality team. And yeah, Missouri FAFO'd.
I mean, this is the thing we've got to talk about. This will apply later, and when we talk about South Carolina, you have to almost like take a team's adjusted net rating this year and then go back and look at the last 5 years to see where it would have been in the SEC. Arkansas probably would be a top 6, top 7 team any other year in the SEC with their net rating right now.
Yeah,
easily top half. So imagine that we were saying like Missouri is a top 4 team going on the road to a top 7 team in the league. You'd be like, all right, yeah, you got to be locked in. We should expect Arkansas to be ready. We should expect, this team to come out and play because they're on the bubble. And I think that would have had the proper framing for it. And if Arkansas in any other year had looked at that number 37 next to their name, it was closer to 39 on Saturday, you'd say, okay, that's a bubble team, and they were playing, and they're going to play for their life. We should expect them to come out and be ready. And I'm saying just as fans, you could perceptually sort of have that. But you look at the record next to their name, and you look at the 4-9, you think, oh, they should be packing it in. They're done. No, they've been hunting for a quad 1 win, and you are on the menu for them. You are one of their last opportunities. And Arkansas played like that. Arkansas played like a team that knew it could not go 0-2 against Missouri and Texas. It simply can't, or it's not going to get in the NCAA tournament. And it played harder. Did it play well at times? No. If you want good evidence, go watch between the 14-minute and the 10-minute mark in the second half when nobody played good basketball. But Arkansas played hard, and they played aggressively, and they were locked in, and they didn't take the opportunity for granted. You sort of hit at it around what are the things we can control when you go play. You can control how you value the ball, the quality of passes you make, the decisions you make. You can control how hard you sprint back on defense. You can control how reactive you are and how well you close out and don't give up an angle. You can control fighting hard over screens or making an aggressive first slide to stop a driver. Like Arkansas did some good things schematically at various stages of the game to put Missouri in some binds. So they deserve some credit for that. But I think at the same time, there are a lot of things where you go back to the film and you're just like, these are effort things. These are focus things. And that wasn't there. And that can happen, I think, when you come off a game where it can feel cathartic to finally get a result, to get the attention, to get the praise that maybe has been a little bit withheld. It's natural, even subconsciously, to take a little bit of a breath, to ease up a little bit. And what this league will do if you do that, it will absolutely slap your hand. And that's what happened. And, I don't know if it means anything long-term. I don't know if it changes what this team's ceiling or potential is. What I do know is for a day, Arkansas played harder, and that overcame maybe some questionable execution because they had intensity, effort, and focus. And end of the day, that was enough for them. So credit to them too, because those guys have been fighting their asses off too. There are people I think online who afterwards were like, oh yeah, 4-9 Arkansas. If you weren't tuning in to watch Arkansas play quad 1 games the last couple of weeks, that team's been really, really fighting hard. They just haven't been able to find the execution late to get it done. But since Boogie Flam went down, that team has found a good rotation. They found a sense of purpose. They're playing hard. And it was a question of when they were going to get a result. And if you weren't locked in, they were going to get it, and they got it. Missouri gave it to them. So credit to Arkansas for taking when it was on the table.
Yeah, I mean, they had opportunities to beat Texas A&M. They had Alabama
On the ropes.
On the ropes. Like they really like that Oklahoma loss happened like right as they were really kind of figuring things out. They had just barely squeaked out a win over Georgia. They didn't really play all that well against Oklahoma. Oklahoma found a way to win. And then like the Kentucky game happened, and it's like they now in the Kentucky game for them, and this isn't an Arkansas pod, so we don't really need to address it a whole lot, but like they shot the ball great, which they have not done all year.
No.
And when you do that, like that carries a lot of weight. But I think what that game did and what winning that game did for them is it allowed them to kind of believe, all right, we can save our season.
Yeah.
And like we can, because at that point, I mean, they're 1-6. And like since then, look, they've been playing like a really, really good basketball team. It's not going to surprise me at all if they win at least a couple more games, get to that 7-11. If they're 7-11, they're probably last 4 in.
Probably they're going to get sent to Dayton, but they're going to have salvaged it, which where they were in late January, credit to them. They dug it out. They will have done something that very few teams at 0-5 do, and they will have dug it out and gotten to the tournament if they pull that off. So all due credit and respect to them. They've gotten it. They've done great work the last couple of weeks to really salvage some stuff.
So what the Alabama win did, as well as the Florida win, as well as the Kansas win, is it showed like what kind of ceiling this team has. And the thing that I thought was important in that game was it showed it to a wider audience that then had tuned in yet, right?
Yeah.
There were no real other games that anybody was checking out at that point. Like, the attention was going to be on, Missouri and Alabama, top 15 matchup. Let's see what these Tigers are about. And Missouri came out and showed everybody that, like, look, this is who we are. This is how we can play. And I don't want to say it like it set the ceiling for them, but it reestablished the ceiling, and it showed a national audience. Because, I think, on the forums, we kind of had like the, positive, Missouri stories right after that win. It was kind of a flood of like the usual national people who aren't normally talking about Missouri and haven't been really talking. They've mentioned them in passing, talking, like they had a nice win, blah, blah, blah. But this was like the win that really kind of put them in the focus. And I think, like, look, disappointment at Arkansas, like what I think we've seen from this team is that, like, they're as good when they're at their best as anybody in the country.
Mm-hmm.
You want to hedge a little bit on Auburn and maybe Duke. I'll listen to that, but I'm thinking, Florida, Alabama, like teams that are really Final Four level teams. Yeah. I look at Missouri as a team that has a ceiling of being a Final Four team. The difference between Missouri and those other teams is the consistency. And when we saw that, because it's not just Arkansas, and I even told you this after the game, I think once the season is over, I'm still going to look back at the 2 Texas games as being more annoying for me as losses than the Arkansas game.
Yeah.
Because I thought they should have beaten Texas. By if they come in and they're more focused, they're more efficient, and they knock down a couple jump shots, just even a couple jump shots early, I think like that's probably a 10, 12 point win. Texas A&M, we've talked about. Like, I feel like those 2 games, and look, like Tennessee, they probably should have beaten Tennessee if Tennessee doesn't shoot as well. But Texas A&M, like, they didn't have a shooting variance night. Missouri shot poorly, but they had a chance down the stretch, and they didn't execute in the way that they needed to execute to kind of put themselves in. So I look at those 2 games, like, even right now in perspective, as games that I wish that we could go back and have. Arkansas played with their hair on fire. They needed the win badly. I really think like those other 2 games are going to hurt more.
Yeah. I look at it this way. I track in the preseason. I go through and I put the schedule into a sheet and I put in all the win probabilities and I average them out. And that's how I basically look at flip games. Because like realistically, your season comes down to flipping 3 or 4 results. Missouri had done that against Kansas. They'd done it against Florida. They'd done it against Mississippi State. They did it against Alabama. And, so they had 4 or 5 flip games. And the only games that really count as a flip against Missouri was the Texas A&M home game. And that was a toss-up anyway. So I look at the Arkansas game. If you'd gone back in the preseason and even until 2 weeks ago, it wasn't until about 10 or 12 days before the game that it really moved to Missouri as a 1-point favorite. So it was a late mover into the win column for them. So it's frustrating like to see the visceral way it played out. But that game for a long, long time was one that if you tracked sort of what models were saying, that was always sort of a flippy, iffy kind of game for them. Even the Texas game on the road was forecasted as a loss in the preseason and for a long, long time through it. So the A&M game is frustrating because that was always forecasted as a home win. There were some rotation management issues down the stretch that I think could have avoided that result. And that would have, and I think what's more frustrating is that's a team you've now got to get around if you want to double bye. You were in position, you had a lead in that game, it slipped. And if they get the double bye by you by 1 game, it's going to leave a mark. So I think that one was probably more frustrating for me. Tennessee on the road, if you can get that, that's found money, man. But Texas A&M at home, when you've been a favorite over them for most of the season in predictive models, and the way that game happened, Texas A&M is going to be the one that leaves a skid mark. It was that game probably was the one that I'm going to grind my teeth to dust over. It's the Texas A&M result. But this is a game. The upside of this, we've griped, we've groused, is hopefully what Arkansas does is it reinforces that. Again, there's the analytical side of our brain that says Missouri's got the softest closing stretch of anybody in the SEC. But that's relative, man. You've got Arkansas that's fighting for its life on the bubble. South Carolina is fighting to get out of the cellar. It doesn't want to be dead last. And any other year, this South Carolina team that's 1-13 would probably be a team that's angling for 7 wins and a 10th place finish in the standings. It's such a deep year for the league that it's kind of warped our sense of what is bad. This South Carolina team in any of the previous 5 years would be a team that would probably be fighting for 9th or 10th in the standings. Mm-hmm. So it's not as you mentioned earlier, it's not Mont's first team that was in the 220 of Kim Pom. It's a team that if you are not ready to go, can, make it a slog for you and bog it down and make it uncomfortable. And you don't want that. Then you have to go to two teams that absolutely need more quad 1 wins. Vandy has not packed it in. Oklahoma has not packed it in. Those teams are like Arkansas. They are fighting for their life and to get to safe. They don't want to go to Dayton. I'll just put it that way. They don't want to go to Dayton. So those aren't games where it's like, oh, well, darn, we're down. They've got something to play for. And Kentucky, despite all of its injuries, despite, a defense that is flighty, I'll put it that way, is still trying to hang in for a protected seed. Relative to its peers, Missouri has an easy schedule, but if you look at this compared to past seasons, we would consider this kind of a gauntlet for a run in.
Yeah.
So it's soft in relative terms, but if you are a team that thinks you can get to San Antonio, that thinks you are one of the best in the conference, that thinks people should, respect you nationally, this is not a time to let up. It's not one where you can have an easy night or a breather of a night. So we'll see, but they've got to handle it. They've got a chance to get to 13 wins still based on what the models are saying, but not if they let up the way they did on Saturday. That's all I'll say. So it's there for them still, but there's no breather at all down the stretch.
Well, let's quickly talk about South Carolina. Mainly because you're right. So I randomly pull up a I don't know why selected 2019. In 2019, the SEC South Carolina actually was 70th in the net rating and finished 11-7.
They had a bad non-con year season. That was awful.
So yeah, like if you want to like this is the kind of like there was always for a while there kind of in like the the 2010s it felt like the SEC always had like one team who had like a terrible net rating who just found a way to win like a bunch of games in league play, and their net rating actually kind of hurt the league.
Yeah,
kind of pull it down a little bit. That was a Frank Martin team. I want to say that was his Chris Silva, Keyshawn Bryant, those guys, Mike Kotsar.
They were great in close games that year. They had a great luck rating.
Yeah, how about some of those names?
A time,
but this year, like South Carolina, look, I'm not here to pump them up. They've been really bad on the road.
Terrible.
That's what you're kind of hoping shows up. They have really, really struggled to be competitive on the road. They did lose 13 straight games. Missouri fans would be very familiar with what that feels like. They beat Texas. They beat them at home. They've been really, really competitive at home. And to the point where like we were all kind of waiting for them to catch somebody at home. They nearly had Florida. They really probably should have beaten Florida at home.
Yeah, I felt bad for them in that one. They should have had
Mississippi State overtime. Like Alabama is the only team that's really gotten them at home. Alabama won by 20. That's not too surprising because like Bama, like I said in study hall, man, like the way that they play is really hard because the offensive pressure, even when they're not scoring, like Alabama's, and when they're not scoring, the offensive pressure is still there, and it puts pressure on you to continue scoring. So like every possession is important against Alabama because even though there are so many of them, but everyone is important because it's just like you feel like you have to score because they're going to score. And I think like that pressure mounts, and so like that's a bad matchup for a team like South Carolina. But yeah, 3-point loss to Auburn. But on the road, it's been ugly. 35-point loss to Mississippi. They did lose to Vanderbilt by 3. Lost by 20 to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Lost by 11 to Georgia. Georgia beats you by 11. That's like a 20-point loss.
Yeah.
Kentucky was another ugly 23-point loss. 21 points against Florida and 14 points against LSU. So that's a lot of double-digit losses on the road. The Gamecocks, like it's Colin Murray Boyles. Nick Pringle's been decent. They will occasionally get a good shooting night from Ugasuk, who's like their kind of rangy shooting guard. Jamari Thomas has been a little bit of a disappointment as far as I think what they were kind of hoping to get from him.
Yeah,
they have some rangy wings. Zachary Davis and Conyers.
Let's be real. None of the. I looked at it. I mean, you can look at them in SEC play. 4 of their guys have sub 95 offensive ratings in SEC play. That's not good. And Jamari Thomas.
They're 16th in offensive rating.
They are They are dead last in adjusted offensive. This is during conference play. Dead last in adjusted offensive efficiency. Dead last in effective field goal percentage. Dead last in 2-point shooting. Dead last in turnover percentage. Dead last in turnovers given up to steals. Dead last in dead ball. Like they don't score very well, and they struggle offensively. Colin Murray Boyles is very, very good. Jamari Thomas. What have we said before? We've had a lot of experience with this, and we've said it a lot, and Missouri fans have probably heard a lot. Even guys have to score on bad teams. And Jamari Thomas kind of epitomizes that. 37% shooter from the floor, shoots 36% from three, but that's kind of warped by some transition threes. He's only like 30% off the catch. Like he's undersized. He's not a great rim finisher. So you get a lot of pull-ups, a lot of stuff in transition, a lot of floaters, but he's going to get touches and he's going to get opportunities because they need someone who's going to go try and create for them. Nick Pringle, bless his heart, is there to like body up big so Colin Murray-Boyles doesn't have to. I mean, he's played a little bit better in the last 5 games, but you look
Nick
at
Pringle has the country's 3rd best free throw rate.
He does draw a shitload of fouls. Mostly because he's just looking for a body to hit all the time.
Yeah. He's attacking the rim.
But point is, Colin Murray-Boyles is good. And, I think he's answered some of the questions we had about him was, could he scale up his usage and become efficient? Yeah, he has been. I think he's done a good job at that. Can he scale up his passing and become a secondary kind of creator? Yeah, he's been pretty good. He's got a 20% assist rate. Turnovers are a little high, but he's got a lot of touches coming through him, so he's getting defensive attention. That's going to happen. His rebound rate has gone up. His block rate has gone up. He's been better this year on a worse roster. So I've got nothing but good things to say about Colin Murray-Boyles. I think Thomas is kind of one of those guys that, we always see every year in the portal. People are like, he averaged 19 a game and 6. And it's like, the MEAC. That's a jump.
Yeah.
That's a big jump. And he's probably going to get.
And I would point out, like we've seen Marquez Warwick come from the Horizon, which is arguably a better league than the MEAC.
It's 10 spots higher than the MEAC.
And a more efficient scorer at Northern Kentucky than Thomas was at is he at Norfolk
State?
Yeah. And Warwick is in a vastly different role on
and a
Missouri,
better offense overall.
Than Thomas is in South Carolina. So Thomas is in he's at like 25% usage.
That's hefty.
That's a big jump going in the SEC.
So what we're saying here is Colin's good. Jamari's going to get a lot of touches. He doesn't always use them efficiently, and that's just the reality. And Nick Pringle is a guy. And then maybe you're hoping Ugasuk comes along. Maybe, you're hoping one of the other bench guys gives you something, but it was the thing we talked about in the preseason with South Carolina. They didn't have what was the supporting cast going to look like around CMB, and it hasn't been good. I have no doubt that Colin's probably going to get 15, 7, and 3 tomorrow. That's what he's been getting all year in the SEC. He's he's going to put that up, but who's going to come with him? And that was and on Saturday, guys came with him. Jamari came with him. Ugasuk came with him. Davis was pretty good. Like, when guys come with him, they can be okay. But most nights it's him, and then you're hoping for one of the other 4 to just get to average in terms of efficiency. And that's then, I think the bigger question we can talk about this if you want, is I think they've made a mistake stylistically. I think they play too slow given their personnel. They need a lot of possessions to give themselves a bite at the apple. Now, there's a chance it can get sideways on them, but like I'm looking at the look ahead here. They play a slow pace defensively. They want to force contested shots, and they want to rebound, and they want to come down and run offense. But they're like 250th nationally in terms of guarded shots. You just burn a lot of time, and the team still gets a good shot. And then you come down on offense, and you turn the ball over, and the other team runs back and scores. Like, it just seems like the way that Lamont has set this up is his team is already it's talent deficient in some areas, and then he's already setting it up to be behind the 8 ball in terms of possession math. It just doesn't seem. And when you go on the road, where you're not going to get friendly whistles, and it's tougher to go into somebody else's building. Like, I just think it's a setup that has them where it can snowball on them pretty quickly.
Yeah,
and it's a problem because guess what Missouri does? They force a lot of turnovers and they rebound well, and they hit you on the secondary break.
Yeah.
So I don't want to. We'll probably jinx them.
And we've seen Missouri snowball on a lot of teams, and Yeah. So I mean, like the projected margin right now is 13. I would be like, I feel like that would be a disappointing performance for Missouri, especially
What
coming
happened
off
on Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I feel like this needs to be 20 plus in order to feel.
You want to see a pissed off Missouri team tomorrow. Let's be frank. You want to see a team that's pissed off after Saturday, and you would like South Carolina to be a pinata for them. That's what you want.
Let's hope. Yeah.
That's
again. South Carolina's competent. There are no bad teams in the SEC this year, but this is about it. This is as close as you're going to get.
Yeah.
This is probably the easiest game you will have outside of maybe the first round matchup in the NCAA tournament.
I don't know if they get Yale, man. I don't like it.
Hey, like I said, there's potentially some swing in there, but in a situation where maybe you're getting obviously I think we hope for like a 4 seed, you get like a 13 seed, maybe that's like a MAC school in the the bottom bottom 20 of the top 100, maybe. It's one of those things versus and that's kind of right where South Carolina is. They're 75th. This is a game that Missouri should win handily.
Yep. And then the trip to OU. So I think that or is it Vandy that's next up?
Vandy's first.
Oh, I don't like that game. I don't like that game at all.
Vandy's, they got to be feeling themselves, especially, like
they've been good at home, man. They've been really good at home.
And they lost to their schedule, yeah. They just beat Ole Miss by
needed
5. They did not play at Kentucky, or did not play well at Kentucky. They did play well at Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
They had moments where they played well at home against Auburn.
But everybody kind of has those. Played well against Texas at home.
So they beat Texas at home. They beat Kentucky at home. They beat Tennessee. Beat South Carolina. This is also, this is a game where, going back and looking at the original matchup, Missouri won by 9 points. Early 14-2 run.
We felt they let up in that game at times.
Yeah, you get up 12. They had a 14-2, a 12-2, and a 10-0 run in the first half. Gave up a 12-2 run, a 12-2, two 12-2 runs. In the second half. And it was just sort of like just holding them at an arm's distance most of the second half.
But it schedule came out. I haven't liked schedule. I haven't liked this matchup since the schedule came out. This is a game.
Matchup or the game itself.
The game itself. I've had this circled as a trap game since fall. So we'll see if Missouri's antenna are up. But this is a game that.
So let me ask you about that, because I don't understand. Like, why would this be a trap game?
I think because Byington won.
I think the Arkansas game was a trap game.
I thought the Arkansas game. I think of a game that a lot of people are going to look at and say, "Oh, that's a natural win." I think if you'd gone back in fall and said, "Okay, which game is Missouri more likely to win? Road game at Arkansas, road game at Vandy," people would say Vandy. People would say that's a game that you should go get. I think even as the season's gone on, just looking at, and I was watching Vandy back in some of their early home games, and even when they were, even when they got Tennessee at home, I just felt like we also felt the roster was built well for them to play fast, to score consistently, and then also create turnovers. They can match Missouri that play Missouri stylistically. They've got some depth. I thought this was just a game where, if coming on the road, if both teams were in a position, again, this was in the fall when I thought this, if both teams were in a bubble position, Vandy was going to be gigged up and focused. And I just thought it's tough to win on the road in this league too. So for me, it's it's a game that I think a lot of people would overlook and automatically chalk off as a win, and I never thought it would be that way. I thought stylistically it was a tough matchup. I thought circumstantially both teams would kind of be in a similar place. And Vandy's in that place where it needs a win now. Now, Missouri, you could argue, needs a win if they want to stay inside the race for the top 4 and get a protected seed. But I haven't liked the matchup. I didn't like when it fell on the calendar. Feel like it came out of a game where if you're coming off, beating South Carolina, maybe you're overlooking this one because you're looking ahead a little bit. I don't know. It seemed to fall at a weird point in the calendar, matchup stuff, circumstances. Seemed like a trap game to me.
I wouldn't call it a trap game. I wouldn't view it as that. I don't think the team is very likely. I can see from a fan standpoint of, fans looking at a little bit overlooking.
That's where I was looking at it from that.
Yeah. So, but I don't think, I think Missouri knows exactly who Vanderbilt is at this point. And I mean, there's no way that you could look at a team who's beaten Tennessee and Kentucky on their home floor and just beat Ole Miss on their home floor and think, oh yeah, we're going to walk in there and get a win. Like it's going to be hard if you want to go in there and get a win. I think they can. I think stylistically, like I think stylistically Missouri is a tougher matchup for Vanderbilt than some other teams. I think teams that struggle offensively. And I'm not saying Kentucky is a bad offensive team, but when you are a team that shoots the way Kentucky does, you are prone to a little bit more variance in your offensive performance. And I think Missouri stylistically wants to get to the rim. They want to get to the line, and then they want to make enough threes to kind of space you out. So I think this is a game where Missouri, they're projected as a 3-point favorite right now. It would make a lot of sense to me for this to kind of come down to the last couple minutes.
Yeah. But it's a get right week. If they get 2 wins this week, which I think people will expect them to do, I think it'll be easy to put the Arkansas game in the rearview mirror. Will it, Matt? Did they fumble an opportunity to get to the top 4 and secure a top 4 spot, or really put a really, really tight grip on a top 4 spot?
Secure, yes.
That was they fumbled that opportunity. I don't think you can mince any words about that. But you go 2-0 this week. You stabilize. The Vandy game will be a quad 1 game on the road. It'll be another quad 1 game you can add. And then you just you have to look around the rest of the country too and say, okay, who's going to slip up here? Is Purdue going to finally succumb and continue to trend the wrong way? But I think I get why people were also frustrated, because Mizzou got a lot of really good help last week from teams around them in the SEC standings and on the 3-4 line. I mean, I think that's the frustrating part here is coaches aren't going to go in and be like, if we get a win today, we're going to. But like, I think for us, you look at it and you go, oh man, it'd be great for it to be like 2 weeks for the SEC tournament, and you've already got an inside track for a double bye and a protected seed and a workable slate to close. Yeah. Oh yeah. So I think that's the frustrating part, if you want to look at it from an analytical perspective, is the probabilities and the odds lined up in a very, very favorable way on Saturday, and then that happened. So, and you don't know if that's going to happen again. You don't know if you're going to get really that sort of set of circumstances again. And it's a good reminder that play hard, because you never know when a door is going to open or when it's going to close on you. All you can control is how well you play. And Missouri didn't do a very good job of that on Saturday.
So I think, they're at 9-5. On the forums, I've kind of gone over, some of the teams that you're kind of watching and who they have to kind of close out. Missouri is projected, but in KenPom to go 12-6. If you had told me that before the season, I'd have been ecstatic.
I'll still be happy if they go 12-6.
I will say this though. I do wonder if you want to get a protected or a double bye in the SEC tournament, you may need to go 13-5. because Tennessee is ahead of you. You're tied with Tennessee.
You're tied with Tennessee and Texas A&M, but they have the tiebreakers over you.
And their closing schedule, Tennessee, is LSU, South Carolina, and then they get Ole Miss and Alabama. They're at worst 3-1.
Yeah.
On that.
Yeah. Yep.
So if they're 12-6, you have to go 13-5 to be ahead of them.
Yep.
And then I think it depends on what Alabama, Florida, and Auburn's going to win the conference. Yeah. Florida and Alabama, but I think what I'm looking at is I'm looking at Tennessee. If Tennessee goes 3-1, Missouri has to go 4-0 to get.
Yep.
So
what you're really doing? So what you're really rooting for here is Tennessee to stub their toe in Oxford. That's what you're rooting for. That's 2-2 for them. That's what you need, is Tennessee to get to 11-7. You need them to get picked. You need Alabama to come in.
Is in Knoxville.
That's what I'm saying. You need Alabama to come in and get a road upset. You need them to stub their toe in Oxford. That's what you need. A&M's got a trick. A&M's got a trickier one though.
3-1. You let them go 3-1. You just go 4-0. That's what I'm saying. Just go 4-0. Just win your games.
Texas A&M. Vandy at home this week. Vandy needs a win, but then this is the killer for them. They got to go to Florida, and then they got Auburn coming to them. That's 2-2 probably. So that's 11-7.
They do close with LSU, which LSU put up a little bit of a fight last time, and that's on the road too. Who knows what's happening at the PMAC on March 8th?
I know what's happening at the PMAC on
baseball.
They're going to run another promotion where your baseball tickets get you into the PMAC. Don't laugh. That's an annual right.
I saw
an annual right there. It's fantastic. It's great. It's always fun to see people come over after watching LSU Club McNeese on the baseball diamond to come in and watch the second half of an SEC basketball game. It's a tradition in Red Stick. It happens. But that's the thing. Yeah. Missouri go 4-0. Hope Texas A&M goes 2-2, and then you just keep an eye out on what's happening in Knoxville. But this is the hopeful note here. You're 9-5, and you're still a number 5 seed in projected lines. You still have a path to a double bye. You're still a top 15 team in the country. That was not something on the table for a lot of folks in October. So Saturday stunk, but in aggregate, it's still a good season. There's still enough time to turn around, and nothing is decided right now. All outcomes are still in play. So
anything's possible.
Anything is possible, including beating the crap out of South Carolina tomorrow. So
start with that. Beat the crap out of South Carolina. Go beat Vandy, and then we'll be back next week to talk about it. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
So with that, we're going to get out of here. Everybody, if you are not a subscriber at Rock M Plus, I would encourage everybody to sign up and come say hello in the forums. We have some fun conversations. Everybody kind of quit talking right after the Arkansas game, but we got them talking again today, and I think everyone's going to get a lot happier to talk tomorrow. So join us on Rock M Plus. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll be back next week. There's 4 games left in the regular season. So we're 2 weeks of basketball, 3 of the SEC tournament, and it's March Madness, baby. So
woohoo!
We're there. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And we'll see you next week.